Hey everyone, this is Kit Cabello with Hard Lens Media, and this is going to be a special laid-back episode, recording really, of a conversation with a good friend of the show, Krish Mohan, who does a lot of great work. He's an independent journalist, commentator, comedian, and again, awesome guy. Krish, welcome to the show. There's a lot to unpack here. And the thing is, we've interviewed you in the past. You've done a lot of great work. We've talked about media censorship as well as the future of independent media. But look, we got to address this one issue, and that is the great debacle that took place a few days ago. Yeah, where we were basically the people of the free world witnessed two old men fighting over a bowl of soup. Now, you know, maybe the standards of running for president have drastically fallen. I don't know. Maybe I wasn't paying attention. Did you get this memo? Because I sure as heck didn't.
Oh, I did not. I didn't know it was going to be that bad. But you know. Hey, when you have a government and an election system run by capitalism, eventually it's going to turn into, old man blood sport. So that's kind of what it devolved into.
What it kind of looked like was really just two old men yelling, and neither one making a coherent argument, though.
No, I mean, there was. I would love to know if anybody watching the debate was able to pick up what issue was addressed, if any, like just one, right? Like right now, I think the biggest story that came out of it was Donald Trump, word vomiting something about Proud Boys stand back and stand by or some shit. And it's just like, yeah, he word vomits a bunch of shit. That's what he does. And usually in that word vomit, he says something that is pretty racist. Guess who also does that? Joe Biden. They both do that because they like to word vomit racism. That's like their what is it? Like that's like their normal default setting. Right? It's like they're gonna say a bunch of stuff. And then at the end of it, it's gonna be like, was that racist? I feel like that was super racist. Yep, that's what it was. And everybody's losing their mind over this whole, stand down and stand by or whatever the hell he said. And, he's like walking it back. I don't know who the Proud Boys are or whatever the hell. And it's just like, dude, I feel like if you're gonna be racist, you should just lean into it, right? Like just lean into it and be like, nah, I'm good. I'm gonna tell them to go fight protesters because, better ratings for me on Fox. Like, just be honest about what it is. But it was I watched an hour out of the 90 minutes and that's all I could take.
No, well,
I watched an hour and blood started shooting out of my eye.
I wish you were here with us in the studio because myself, Daniel, and Jose sat through the entire nightmare. We listened to the whole debacle, and the thing is that what I'm finding interesting is the hypocrisy. And you've dealt with this. We have dealt with this. Good friends of the show, Jimmy Dore, Nico House, the crew at the Convo Couch, Graham Elwood, Lee Camp, they've all dealt with this too, and that is the blindness of the blue checkmark people, the neoliberal people, the vote blue no matter who people on Twitter and social media. When you got Rob Reiner, for example, who quotes out, "We have won this election." I'm like, what do you mean by "we have won this election"? And second of all, was anyone not paying attention? You even have people like Cenk Uygur of TYT who are now trying to brand the "Will you shut up, man?" that when Biden said that to Trump.
Oh yeah,
and now putting it on T-shirts, which is like, okay, that doesn't solve anything. Okay, I think we all can universally agree we want to tell Donald Trump to shut up, but that's not a debate, that's not a policy issue. So
exactly.
So go ahead.
No, but you're right. Is to Rob Reiner, someone that's in Hollywood, a very rich person that has made millions and billions of dollars in the movie industry, they have won. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter who wins, right? And this is one of the. This was like, I was astounded that this moment even happened. But they brought up Trump's taxes, which we all knew they were going to do. We all, like the second that story came out, it was so close to the debate that they were going to bring it up. But now all these squishy liberals are making this all about Trump, right? They're like, oh, Trump, he's evading taxes, he's not paying enough. And it's like, how much money do you think Jeff Bezos paid in taxes last year? I'll give you a hint. It's fucking nothing. He didn't pay any taxes at all. He's on his way to be a trillionaire, and he's evading taxes because of corporate loopholes. Corporate loopholes that Democrats and Republicans alike have given to people like Trump and Jeff Bezos and Tim Cook. And, all these other rich people are falling in line because that's what they want. They want that. And Trump called that out on the debate stage, which was astounding to me. It was insane that moment happened. And I was like, holy shit, I can't believe they're letting this happen on television. But that's why Rob Reiner says they won. Because it doesn't matter whether Trump wins or Biden wins, because the elites are going to win regardless. Mm-hmm. Biden's going to be a puppet for them, and Trump already is. The only reason they don't like Trump is because he, all the stuff that's supposed to be in the shadows, supposed to be in the dark, he's just shedding light on it because he's too bombastic to keep that shit a secret. Mm-hmm. You just can't do it.
Now, the thing is, when we see this election and how it's been playing out this entire election cycle right now for 2020, and also rewinding back the clocks and going back to 2019, constantly we were heard from corporate media that, well, Biden has this in the bag, Biden has name recognition. And from last night's debate, I don't think anyone was inspired. And we had people on the left and on the right all agreeing, which is a rarity on social media, that no one has any idea who won that debate because no one learned anything. And one thing that people need to be reminded is that we have this antiquated system known as the Electoral College that existed when slavery was still a thing here in this country, even though no one addresses the prison-industrial complex. But popular vote doesn't mean anything. The Electoral College will supersede any popular vote. And here in the state of Illinois, I know it's going to be a solid blue state and it's going to go to the Democrats. But what people tend to forget is that Pennsylvania went to Trump during the 2016 election cycle. And so my question is to you, since you are in Pittsburgh, have you seen the Biden campaign in Pennsylvania or anywhere in your city in Pittsburgh? Because
he actually just came through.
Really?
Yeah, he's been through here twice. He's been through here twice. Probably in the last 3 months. So at least in terms of, learning from the mistakes of the Hillary campaign, because she never went. She didn't go to Michigan. She didn't go to Wisconsin. I think she came to Pennsylvania. She came to Pittsburgh once, and it was like an rally. Like, it was like people showed up, but Bernie had 10,000 people show up. So she maybe had, 15, 20% of that. But that's because, again, it's the same thing as Biden is like, there is not a lot of energy behind this. Nobody is sitting there going, yeah, this is our guy. The guy that says he's not going to give us health care and saying that we're going to expand the military and huzzah to the Patriot Act, which was one of the worst pieces of legislation to strip Americans of their rights. Mm-hmm. This guy's like, no one is doing that, and no one should be doing that. And I have, so he showed up to Pittsburgh, and he went to like Westmoreland County, which are like these smaller, some of these smaller towns around Pittsburgh, outside Allegheny County. And I think he spent like 3 days in Westmoreland County, and I think he's taking a train and going east now, which, by the way, is like, that's what Eugene Debs did in 1908, by the way. Eugene Debs was part of the Socialist Party of America, and he went around the country in a self-funded train educating people about the Socialist Party of America and why he was running for president. So for as much as he wants to sit there and be like, I beat the socialists, I'm not a socialist, but I will steal their ideas. I will steal their ideas and co-opt them for capitalism. I will do that. It's like, this is what he does.
Well, here's the thing. Well, there's another issue to bring up, and that is, look, we're seeing the hypocrisy of the Democrats, and also, the fallout of that wonderful task force that the Biden and Sanders campaign worked together on, even though they didn't adopt any of the Sanders campaign's policies or issues that they wanted to bring up. And what's really unfortunate is that even during this debate, there was originally climate change was not going to be addressed. It was one of the main issues, but Chris Wallace, who somehow had to be a kindergartner teacher at the same time during that debate, brought up the Green New Deal, and you hear Biden just cast it aside as though it meant nothing. And what people also need to be reminded of is that fracking is a real serious health issue, not only environmentally, but also to people as well as to ecosystems. And Pennsylvania has a fracking problem right now. So,
Yeah.
I mean, okay, so if the Democrats are saying that they're going to have the Green New Deal, their nominee is just casting it aside, though.
But so are the representatives too,
Right.
right? So it goes down, all, to the state houses too, is because nobody in Pennsylvania, not one person in the Democratic Party that comes out of the state of Pennsylvania is willing to push back against the fracking industry, and so pandemic and everything, I've started taking care of this elderly woman, and so we'll sit and we'll watch the evening news, right? I haven't watched the evening news in like a decade and a half.
you poor fellow. I'm very sorry for you.
It's crazy. It's like every 28 seconds, it's like a Trump ad that's like, "Are you gonna die right now? Don't elect Joe Biden." Like that's literally one of the commercials. Is like, if you vote for Joe, your heart will be killed and stolen by an immigrant. It's like, that's not how any of that works. But but these commercials come up and they talk about fracking, right? And it's always like how fracking is bringing jobs. Look how good my life is because I work with a corporation that does fracking, right? And Connor Lamb, who's the representative, I think he's running for re-election, and his opponent is also equally insane. But Connor Lamb has a commercial where he basically talks about how the way they frame it is, oh, he went against his party. Look how great he is because he went against his own party for the interests of the people to keep fracking jobs in Pennsylvania. Mm-hmm. But they're not talking about how it affects the land, how it affects the people on the land that they're fracking, how it poisons the water, how it's destroying the environment. So yeah, hooray, jobs, yay, but also you're gonna die. Like your lung is gonna be completely decimated, your water is gonna turn into poison, like you can literally set it on fire, which is something, I don't know if you know this, Kit, is something a water shouldn't do is be on fire.
Well, I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure. Like even preschoolers know that. Now, of course, Biden and Trump set the standard because obviously their IQs both collectively are lower than a child. Dare I say it? Maybe even a newly born infant is smarter than both of them combined. After what we saw on that horrible Tuesday night.
Oh man! Yeah.
Wow, that's gonna be a day that's gonna go in infamy. It's gonna be one of those.
Now they're talking about changing the rules of the debates, and so what? Like, you think these two old egotistical men? I mean, Joe Biden literally said he was the Democratic Party in response to what? Trump said something about the Democratic Party shifting to a more socialist healthcare program, which is false because the DNC came out and said they would never put that as part of their platform. And Joe Biden said he would veto Medicare for all. He would veto everybody getting healthcare. That's what Joe Biden said. And then the second Trump brought this up, that, we're going to the socialist direction or whatever nonsense he wants to spew, Joe Biden comes out and goes, I am the Democratic Party right now. I mean, that's 5 minutes into the friggin' debates, and nobody wants to bring that up. Nobody wants to bring up the fact that he just transformed himself into the party. It's like he became the living embodiment of the party, which also makes sense because the Democratic Party is a very old racist man pretending that he's not racist that probably has dementia. Like that. Right. That does make sense. That's very on brand for the Democratic Party.
Well, speaking of on brand, because like the Democratic Party at this point, because I think a lot of people, especially on social media, because we here at Heartlands Media and a few other independent media outlets, you as well, like we are very critical of the Democratic Party. And of course, some of the pushback we get is, well, how come you guys don't talk about Trump? How come you guys don't talk about the Republicans? Because that's low-hanging fruit. We already know that the Republican Party is a lost cause, even though Nancy Pelosi does hold on. She prays for a strong and restored Republican Party at this point, even though the Democrats are becoming the Republican Party of the 1980s. But we're seeing they're out. We're seeing their hypocrisy. We're seeing them once again lie to us. We're seeing them once again show themselves as the frauds that they are. But you mentioned how one Democratic lawmaker is breaking away from his party, saying like, I'm for fracking. But then let's talk about Democrats who break away from the party and talk about, I don't know, speaking to conservative voters, libertarian voters, independent voters, and also fighting for election integrity. And as Tulsi Gabbard, for example. Now, she went out to address ballot harvesting and how, of course, there's a lot of issues with election integrity in this country, and of course she gets pushed back because, which I have to say, she should not have used them as a source, Project Veritas, because they have screwed up knowingly many times and have done horrible journalism many times, and only rarely have they actually gotten it right. But she used them as a mention that, hey, look, there is a problem with ballot harvesting. There's a lack of election integrity. And when she does bring it up, or when she does kind of speak to the other side, she gets pushed away and is once again called a traitor and someone who's a right winger. I mean, is there any hope for the Democratic Party, even when you have somebody who's trying to do the right thing and address a real fundamental issue, and that is the lack of election integrity?
No, I genuinely think that the party is dead, and the party's been dead for the last 4 years. I think once Hillary lost, that was it. I mean, that election was handed to her, and she's still found a way to lose. I think the party's been dead. The problem is, we live in this binary country where everything is either conservative or liberal, Democrat or Republican, red or blue, right? And that's not how the world works. There's a lot of people that believe in a lot of shades of gray. I've talked to Bernie supporters that think that his Medicare for All plan is a little too far left, and they would like the inclusion of private health insurance company, but they believe that everybody should be granted health care, right? So that's a very interesting shade of gray to be in, where you're a Bernie supporter, and the flagship issue that Bernie Sanders runs on, you think is a little too far left. Right? I've met former Republicans that were for Tulsi Gabbard because she is anti-military. Not anti-military, but anti-war. That's a better way to say it. But
or is it really against the military-industrial complex?
Military-industrial complex, yes, thank you. So that's an interesting shade of gray, right? A former Republican that served in the Navy. That I met this guy at the town hall. He was He was a former, he was in the Navy, he's a Navy veteran, and he believes in Tulsi Gabbard because she is against the military-industrial complex. Well, that's a very interesting shade of gray. Well, so where does this guy fall in? What party do either of these people have that accurately represents them, right? It's not the Democrats, it's not the Republicans, so where do they go? So that's part of the thing of why I think, because of the two-party system, the way it's set up, I think the Democrats lost over the course of the time, and the party's dead, and I don't think there is any recovery for the party. And I think people have tried. There have been many attempts to reform the Democratic Party from within. And what people fail to understand, and the way they understand it is by trying to reform it from within. So Eugene Debs in maybe 1884. Don't quote me on the date, but he was in the House of Representatives in Indiana. He was an Indiana rep, and he was trying to get railroad workers paid medical leave, right? If they get hurt on the job, they still get paid so that their family can eat. And it took a little while, it took a little greasing, and eventually the Democrats in the House passed it. It hit the Senate floor, it immediately died. Not one Democrat on that floor would even consider the bill, and that's when Debs realized that this party can't be changed from within. What this party represents, and this is the 1880s, is corporatism. They were for the railroad industry. They were not for the railroad worker, right? So the big train companies and the big rail companies would lose money if their employees got injured and then would have to get paid to go on leave and then come back and do their job again.
Right.
So the Democrats' argument was, so it's always been the party of big business. And every time somebody tries to reform it from within, they fail because you can't reform something that has been solidified in this, party of big business, the party of private industry for over 200 years. It's just, you just can't do it. It's asinine to try.
Okay, so you've been on the ground reporting and obviously giving your commentary. You've been a guest co-host on a lot of other independent media networks too, and so I just want to get your opinion on this because obviously I agree with you on the fact that reforming the Democratic Party, we've seen our revolution try it, we've seen Justice Democrats try it, we saw a brand new Congress try it, and little to no success. There might be some examples here and there, but I mean it's not going to fundamentally change. So then, what is the next pathway? Do we look at third parties like what the Movement for People's Party is doing? Do we look again to the Greens and Libertarians, even though that they are struggling now more than ever? Or do we take another pathway and I guess kind of do this whole unity idea where you got people who are calling for like Democrats like Tulsi Gabbard, Andrew Yang, as well as a few Republican conservatives to form a different kind of coalition? Like, what is the next step? Because obviously you can't reform the DNC, and obviously you can never reform the Republican Party. Do we look at third parties or a potential coalition of something that we have never seen before that looks monumentally difficult?
Yeah, I think it has to be all of it
Okay.
in order to really take on what the DNC and the RNC represent, right? We just talked about how the Democrats were always the party of big business, but the Republicans, when they initially started, were not. That's not how they started. They were the abolition party, right? And Lincoln screwed up in a couple different ways by, one, selling off the state of West Virginia to the timber and the railroad industries so that he would have a supply line exclusive to the Union, right? In order to win the Civil War, he tried to basically give it to the big businesses, but they were still not the party of big business until William McKinley showed up, and he realized that that's the only way that they're going to beat the Democrats is if they curry favor to big, large industry titans. So they became that party of industry in the early 1900s. So, again, it's like, and then the Republicans have just been pushing and going further and further over to the right and getting way crazier. And at this point, they're basically, they're very upfront about how fascistic they are. Whereas I think the Democrats are more crypto-fascists, right? They're kind of fascists in the dark. They won't cop up to a lot of, they'll come out and give you a lot of platitudes. So in order to go against these two beasts, I think it has to be all of it. I think we have to amplify things like the Green Party, the Libertarians. We have to see what the Movement for People's Party is doing and support them. I haven't looked too much into this unity idea, but a couple people have sent it to me. And it's just, I just haven't had time to read it yet. But if, from the basic understanding that I have, Tulsi Gabbard and Andrew Yang and a couple of these, outsider Republicans have name recognition. The Movement for a People's Party has people like Jimmy Dore, Cornel West, Nina Turner, right?
Absolutely.
So it's, there's name recognition for them. The problem with the Greens and the Libertarians is, where is the big name recognition? The Greens maybe have Jesse Ventura, but what the Greens really need is, in my opinion, a little bit more national organization. I know a lot of Green Party members that come out to see shows and will sit there and talk, and they want to talk about local organizing, and they do really well with local organizing, right? Like the South Carolina, Indiana Green Party specifically, I've talked to and worked with, and they've done some really amazing things on the ground. But on a national level, I think the party needs. The Green Party needs reforming, and it can be reformed. And I think there can be a coalition if we come out and say, look, there's all these things going on, and those are good things because those are good options to have. We don't need everything to be only about the Green Party or only about the Republicans or only about the Unity Party or only about MPP. All of these things can exist, and all of these things, the goal of it shouldn't be, I'm going to win, but it should be, how do we get rid of this corporate election system that we have, this hyper-capitalist election system that we have, and bring a more people-focused election in, bring a more people-focused government in. Because if we don't, then what we saw on that Tuesday night, that's the future. That's what capitalism brings you. It's just all entertainment is really what it becomes, right? It's not about politics. It's not about policies. I get these texts every single day about registering to vote and everything like that, and that's fine. And I try to talk to some of them when I know like it's a real person and not a bot. And I had one guy literally tell me that policies don't matter. This election is bigger than policies, in trying to get me to vote for Joe Biden. And that's one of the most insane arguments I've ever heard. But that is the state of American politics, is that the people that want you to buy into the DNC or buy into the RNC don't want you to think about the ideas, don't want you to think about the policies, don't want you to think about your neighbor or your fellow man. They just want you to prop them up, right? Like we're kind of heading into like, this is the oligarchy. It is just a new version of the king. It's everything that the founding fathers didn't want to happen with the country is basically what's happened with the country. And now we have Trump and we have Biden, who are both, again, I think they're looking for the same thing. I think they're looking for blind followers that will just do whatever we ask them to, or whatever they ask us to do. And what gives me hope is the fact that we have things like the Unity, the MPP, the Green Party, the Libertarian, and people on the ground that are protesting this stuff, that are pushing back against it.
Right.
Like, that's what we need more of. We need, my biggest concern with the Joe Biden victory is all of the people that have started to pay attention over the last 4 years and started to realize some of the stuff that you, me, Jimmy, Lee, Ron, Kim Iverson, all these people have talked about for years now. They're like, holy shit, you guys, this is how long has this been going on? It's like, oh, for a while. For
a while. And one of the concerns for a Biden administration that I have is if should he be elected, look, I don't want to see Trump get reelected. I really don't. But with the Biden administration, remember, we got Trump after 8 years of Obama. And what I could see a scenario happen, and look, I could be wrong about this, but we could look at maybe, I don't know, dare I say it, 12 more years of additional austerity. And what I mean by this is that, of course, you have Biden's first term and maybe something medically happens and he's out. And then for the next 2 years or 3 years, however long he is in his administration, you have Kamala Harris take over. Right. And then, she's filling in as a temporary role, but then she could run for a first and second term of her own. And then after that, what follows that Biden-Harris ticket? What follows that Biden-Harris administration? It could be somebody worse than Donald Trump. And that's something a lot of people are closing their eyes to. And the fact is that Trump, he didn't create this system. Racism didn't just show up overnight. It's been here for a very long time.
He's benefited from it.
Yeah.
For sure. I think, and I think you're right. That is something that's very concerning, is if something happens to Biden, then you have Harris for, so then we have 12 years of that. And even if it's like a Harris Klobuchar or Harris Warren, because, and nothing wrong with two women, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying they're being chosen not for their qualifications and not for their merits, but because they're women, and because they're neoliberal women too, right? Like, you had a progressive woman run within the Democratic Party, and you smeared her by calling her a Putin puppet and
a traitor and so much more. Yeah.
Right. An active member of the U.S. military, a U.S. military veteran, you called her a traitor. That's what happens when you're a woman and you stand for progressive politics.
Yeah.
And look, I've had my issues with Tulsi throughout the campaign and afterwards. Right. Her endorsement of Biden was I think a blow to every Tulsi Gabbard supporter out there, because he stands for the exact opposite of everything she stands for. But the point remains that it might be 12 years of that. But the other thing too is, if, let's say it's even just 4 years of that, or 6 years of Harris and question mark. So what happens when people get sick of that? And someone like, I don't know, Bloomberg starts running again? right? And maybe it won't be exactly like Bloomberg exactly, because I doubt that he's going to have the capital to put back up like he did in this last election. But, you know, it could be somebody worse. It could be like an Elon Musk, who has already kind of somewhat tried to engage in politics. Or, you know, what's to stop Jeff Bezos from running to
Right.
take over, right? And he has the money to do it. So that concerns me. The complacency of people when Democrats are in office concerns me. You know, so what would be nice is if we had some level of discourse where I can sit there and say, I'm not going to vote for Joe Biden, I'm not going to vote for Donald Trump, and here's all of my reasons why. And somebody can come and say, well, here's why I am voting for Joe Biden. And, you know, what I can promise you, and this is what the point that Cornel West starts to make too, is what I can promise you is when this is all said and done, if Joe Biden is office, I promise that I won't stop fighting. I promise that I won't go back to complacency. Because I get it, it's really hard, right?
Yeah.
Like constantly being in the know about this stuff is really, really hard. And I 100% get that. But if we stop now, you know, like the reason why full out fascism isn't in this country is because we have people fighting against fascism, whether it's amplifying voices, whether it's literally being on the ground, whether it's pushing back against legislation, whether it's leading marches and demonstrations. It's because people are paying attention and it's harder for them to get away with this shit.
Mm-hmm.
What doesn't work is making excuses and saying, well, it's not okay when the Republicans do it, but when the Democrats do it, we'll just kind of brush it aside. No, it's all bad. Mm-hmm. It's all bad. Crypto fascism is still fascism. Like but that's the concern that I have too, is I don't want people to go back to sleep so that they can go back to the shadows and start doing the same shit that they've been doing for the last however long, the last century of authoritarianism that has been put into legislation, you know, and you look at things like the Federal Reserve Act, the Espionage Act, the way that Nixon handled Daniel Ellsberg when he was revealing things, the Patriot Act was coming out of that, the way we treat police officers to qualify. I mean, the list goes on and on.
Yeah.
You know, so now that people are aware of this stuff, there's no turning back. As much as you want to close your eyes to it, you can't.
I fully agree, and the sad fact is that, you know, I think it's going to take a while before more and more people step up. But I think as a final question that I would like to give you is, look, I've been noticing your studio looks awesome, and what a lot of our viewers may not know is that, hey, you're a comedian, you do your online show, so excuse me. Don't worry, I'm still 100% healthy. What I want to ask is, for our viewers and subscribers, number one, where can they find you online and social media? Excuse me.
Oh my goodness.
Wow. And don't worry, it's going to be in the video.
Take a deep breath. It's a big question, kid.
It is. So, for our viewers and subscribers, one, where can they find you online and social media? And then two, if you're doing any kind of online shows or tours, could you please let us know where we could find out more information and where we can find you, find your social media website?
Yeah, so my website is krishmohanhaha.com. It's KRISHMOHANHAHA.com. And I do a couple of different things. So I do these virtual shows on Fridays. I'm doing them 3 Fridays out of every month at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. You get a ticket, and then it gives you a confirmation. An hour before the show, I send you the link to the Zoom virtual theater, and everybody comes in and we all have a good time. It's called the Citizen Revolution. It's the banner that's right behind me, and like I said, that happens on Friday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. The tickets are available on my website, and those get recorded and eventually become episodes of my web show, Forkful of Noodles. And then I also have an interview podcast called Taboo Table Talk. And you can follow me on social media, on YouTube, on Rockfin, at Krish Mohan Haha. So Rockfin's the big one, because they
Yeah.
don't censor people. So
Yeah, oh no,
And they
I
want
agree with you.
to get paid.
Rockfin's pretty cool. They've been very good to us, and we have our own show on Rockfin as well. So yeah. So
Yeah,
Krish,
I like that channel a lot.
so Krish, as always, it's awesome to have you on our show.
Thank you
I'm
for
very
having me
glad
back.
to have you back on. I hope our viewers learn more about you and find you online as well. And when this crisis does pass, you are more than welcome to come to Chicago, be a guest co-host into our studio. We would gladly welcome you in here with open arms. So please take care out there, and all the best to you, Krish.
You too. Thank you. Yeah, I miss touring a lot. So hopefully, when all this is done, I will. Chicago will definitely be a stop to come through on the tour and
Let us
and
know.
Yell at people directly at their face.
Well, let us know when that happens, and we will
will.
meet you there. Peace to
you,
everyone,
Kit.
and let us all do what we can to build a better future.